So thank you, Susie, and thank you all for being here. Family Encouragement Conference. I feel encouraged. I hope you all do too. And we really appreciate everyone coming and appreciate me being invited to share my thoughts and feelings with you. And so thankful to our extra special guests that I'll talk to you about in a minute. So transition planning, my older daughter, who's been in Boston for a year, made a pit stop in Knoxville. She's at my house as we speak, and she's getting ready to move to College Station, Texas for the next 5 years. Helped me with these slides. And it was interesting to me that she put mother first and then TEIS service coordinator. And I thought, maybe I should ask her to change that. And then I thought, no, mother. I remember seeing another presenter who had 6 kids, and then she listed all the other things. No, she listed all the things she did, and then mother of 6. And I said, your mother of 6 is your claim to fame. And then the last speaker, that if you all were in here listening, you know, that mother job, it gives you a lot of street cred. So I just thought it was interesting that she put mother first, but that's who I am. Let's see, so overview of the session. So preparing for the transition, so many times we think about the IEP and who's gonna be in there and what's it gonna say, but I really believe you need to prepare emotionally too, because it's a lot. I get chills. It was kind of lethargic preparing this. My daughter I'm getting ahead of myself. My daughter's 22. So you would think, but I remember her first IEP meeting like it was yesterday when she was 3 years old. I can tell you where I was, who was at the table, what I was feeling, what it was, how much I was able to concentrate, and how much I was like, what the heck am I doing here? You know, this was not supposed to happen. But anyway, so I want to talk about that emotional preparation for this. Talk a little bit about the school systems processes and some of those technical aspects that you need to have a handle on a little bit, and then just navigational tips personally and professionally. And as I touch myself here, I'm reminded this is a pin that my older daughter made for me when she was 4. And I wear it to almost every IEP meeting. And it was funny because as I was preparing today, I was like, what am I going to wear? And this came to my mind. So she's with me, which means my other daughter's with me. But I don't know, this was interesting to prepare for because I went down memory lane again. And since I work with birth to 3, I had the fortune of working with this lovely couple, and it just throws me back. It's years I love, years that were very hard for me personally. And she was born without the internet. So there are advantages and disadvantages to that. But anyway, I'll try to stay on topic here. So myself, I've already told you a little bit about me. So my background is in audiology. I have a clinical doctorate, which is very different than a research doctorate, which is a little boring if you ask me. But so I worked as an audiologist in ENT offices, in the Dallas Independent School District in a blended preschool program. And while I was there, that's when I had 2 daughters. So I was on one side of the table for a long time as a preschool audiologist, and then I'm on the other side of the table. There's a picture of Olivia when she was kind of 3, kind of 4, but that's the little stink bomb that has inspired kind of my career change, I suppose. Being a service coordinator with TEIS is not a common job for an audiologist, but because of Olivia and because of what early intervention meant to us, it was something I thought, I'll give it a try. And then about half the children on my caseload, I started getting the children who had different hearing levels. So it was nice to mesh the parent, the clinic, the school, all of it. So this, I can't even stand to look at that thing. One of her teachers made like this little sunflower, cut out this teeny tiny picture of it and put it right smack dab in the center of the sunflower. And it's like, that's no sunflower I've ever seen in my life. But that's Olivia. So what is transition? I went too fast. Okay. So when you think of transition, what kind of words come to your mind? What kinds of feelings come to your mind? Chaos. So, there's a lot of words. Who said what? Uncertainty. Anxiety. Change of routine. It's funny because as I was brainstorming, I had all those first come to my mind, and then I thought, no, let's present the other side too. Calm or overwhelmed, scared, excited, adventurous, nervous. So I think as I've gone along in time, I can say all of those have applied to me. Sometimes a whole lot, sometimes a little bit. I prepare a lot, and I go in there fairly calm, and then I like, so within one IEP meeting, I can have all of these things. So I just wanted to kind of pose that to you, that there's a flip side to that, you know. That's the emotional part of preparing for a transition meeting that sometimes we forget about. You know, we think about our rights and what are the services and what are the goals, but being in an emotional spot to process that, you know, the previous person talked about the insurance companies. We know that that's a battle in and of itself. So, you know, just kind of these things that you don't necessarily think of at first. So here's my thoughts. Transition means change, and it can feel unfamiliar and uncertain, for sure. Information and having a plan is what I have found gave me a sense of stability and security. So being prepared, but how do you do that? But just transition in general, if you have a plan, you feel like, okay, I can maybe do this. So transitions are here to stay. Puh. They are hard. They will happen. The first big one, early intervention services to school services. That's a biggie. Then you've got all these in-between transitions as they change grade levels, as they change teachers, teacher assistants. I remember one time, it was the end of the year, I'm thanking everybody, and I said, and you'll be here next year, just as a whim. And their face went blank, and I'm like, are you not coming back next year? And they said no, and I was like, holy guacamole, I was not ready for that. So you not only have these transition meetings, but you have these transitions of people that can be tricky too. And then new schools, you know, they're not going to be in elementary school all their life. Then they're going to go to middle school, and then high school. But one of the biggest transitions I learned is that transition from school to what's next. And that's a biggie. But that's the 20 years down the road that we're not going to talk about right now. But my point is, transitions are not going to go anywhere. And so how do we prepare for them? How do we get ready for them? Because they are going to happen. And TEIS has some differences in policies about how long children will be in our program. But I just want you to remember that transition will happen. So be ready for that one and the next one, and it's okay. Transition can be very positive. Children always go with flying colors. It's us parents that are like, how's this going to work? You know, the kid knocks it out of the park. But let's see. Whoops. Oh, okay. So one thing again about just feeling comfortable with it, I want to try to draw some parallels between what you've been doing in your time in TEIS and how that's very similar to some of the next things that are going to be happening. So let's see. So early intervention to school services. Early intervention, you know, has an individualized family service plan, an IFSP. It was very interesting to me. You know, school services have an IEP, an individualized education plan or program. You might see either one of those words. And it's like, okay, shift from this to this. And then from school services to the adult version is a person-centered support plan. So it's very funny. There's a plan in each place. It's just different people, and it's called something different, and it's in a different setting. But those core components are the same. So that's what I want to help you feel familiar with what you're getting ready to do. Let's see here. So just real quick, the processes that are almost a mirror image of each other. There's a referral. You know, you got referred to TEIS. Your service coordinator refers you to the school. That's the same. Eligibility determination, you know, someone came out to your home or talked to you on the phone, gathered medical records, gathered the eligibility stuff, and someone said, yep, you meet criteria. It's the same thing with the school. They'll gather medical records, do their evaluation, see if you meet eligibility determination. Both have rights and procedural safeguards that are very similar. The school's is 18 pages front and back. TEIS's is a nice little slick brochure with a cute picture of a child on it. But the core rights are the same. They can't do anything without your permission. Everything's confidential, and you should know and agree to whatever change is being proposed or made. You'll have a meeting to write the plan, and it has to be held at least once a year, but you can have it more often if you need to. But it has to be held once a year. So whatever you agree to initially will definitely be reviewed, but if you feel like it needs to be reviewed sooner, you can. And in that plan, family concerns, present levels of development, goals, and services, same thing. So here my daughter Olivia has this person-centered support plan. It's the same stinking thing, just a different format and a different person typing it in. And would you believe some of the concerns are still the same? That was interesting to me. You know, wanting her to feel like a part of the school. We want her to feel like part of the community. We wanted her to make a positive contribution to her school. She went to all very large schools. And we wanted her to make an impact on that school and to be a student that was valued and recognized. In the community, we want the same thing. So it's funny how even our concerns are similar as she's gone on. So the other thing is the team. You have an IFSP team with your service coordinator and therapist and what have you. And there's a school team. So again, this is not you on your own coming up with things, I don't know what goal to write. You have team members that you all work together to do this. So I think the most important person on the team is family, as well the school team. And that was kind of hard for me to accept sometimes because I thought, even though I had this knowledge of school and knowledge of rights, I mean, I often told families in the clinic, you have the right to do this or that. But then when it came time for me to follow what I was saying, it's harder. That emotional part is just different. But you are so important. You have a service coordinator that's kind of your point person with TEIS. If you transition to school services, you'll have a case manager. If your child's in a preschool, it'll be that teacher. If they get speech therapy, it'll be that person. But you'll have a point person to talk to. I got new contacts and I can't see quite well. So you have, at TEIS, we contract with different therapists and you go to different offices or they might come to your home. In the school, they're employed by the school. Sometimes some districts will contract with other people. So you don't have the choice of this one's close to my home or this or that. So it's in the school. And then, you know, one of your rights is if we have a concern that we can't resolve, I can get supervisory help. How many times have you all heard that? And the same thing with the school. If you feel like your point person is not very responsive, there's people above that person that might be more responsive. So I just want, again, for you to see that similarity between what you've had and what what is next? Let's see here. So in talking about the IEP, some meeting tips. This is a pretty important part, knowing those nuts and bolts. So just be confident that you know your child the best, and you've already learned so many things about them that other people don't know, and that's valuable. You know, they're coming at it with an educational background, but you're coming with it with a bunch of experience. And even if your child's just 3 years old, buddy, it's been 24/7 that you have been with that child. So you know that child. I guarantee you know that child. But be confident in how important that is. And then be prepared emotionally and then practically. And that preparation looks different for different people. You know, for me, preparation was getting all the reports, getting all the progress notes, getting all that stuff, spreading it out, fretting, worrying, then finally collapsing with, I don't know what to do. And then I imagined God laughing at me saying, Jackie, just been waiting for you to give this to me. And so then I gave it to him and I was much, much better. But that was my process. And then each year I went through the same thing, even though I knew that I was going to crumble again, but that was just my process. And he made me that way, so he knew that. And then feel free during the meeting to take a moment to pause and breathe. You know, it's been such an event to try to get the darn thing scheduled, and there's so many people in there. But you know what? That's your time. That is your time. And I would always say it's not an IEP meeting unless I cry. I cry out of gratitude, I cry out of fear, I cry out of worry, I cry out of, gosh, did I screw something up? You know, I should have done this. But it's like, even when things are going fantastic, my heart gets so full with gratitude and it comes out my eyes. So I don't give a flying flip if it makes anyone uncomfortable. And when I'm mad, I cry. And then they pass me the tissues and I'm like, I don't want a tissue. I want you to see my snot and tears running down my face because I am mad. But anyway, but take a moment and breathe. And there were times that I would just say, I need a moment. And I would just think, you know, y'all can wait on me for just a minute. Just a minute. This is a big deal getting everybody together in the same spot. You can wait on me for just a second. Or I always had papers and notes, and so I would look for something and buy myself a little bit of time that way too. But anyway, so some other tips, just some things to think of before the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting. That is possibly teeny tiny print for you all. But all of this presentation is going to be emailed to you all with a lot of other things. And there will be a link for you all to use. And I've got several other resources. Some are in a PDF, but others are in a link. So know your rights. Prepare emotionally to see your child on paper. That's hard because paper does not measure intangibles. And my daughter has an intangible of intuition. She can see someone's face and what you'd think she didn't even know anybody was around, and she'd say, what's wrong? You know, that's not measured in an IQ test. And to me, that is valuable. Whoops, I feel my eyes starting to get ready here. But I remember when she went into Birth to 3, I knew all these words that she was saying. And so her IQ was pretty up there. And then her eligibility is determined every 3 years. I don't know if I skipped over that or said that yet. So they re-upped her. And her IQ, and I thought, what the heck? I get chills just thinking about it. And then in middle school, I remember seeing her on paper. I remember the room I was in, and I was like, are you all sure this is accurate? And they said, yes, but it's just one moment in time and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I get that. But for the person who doesn't know her, who picks up her chart and sees that IQ, that's not my daughter. And so I asked them to put in the meeting notes something to that effect. But that's one of those, things like, whoa. But I think because I understood her language so much, she got higher scores. Then when they stopped using mama as a reporter, which I really tried not to exaggerate. I say that jokingly, but I didn't. But I knew what she wanted because I was with her all the time. So that was interesting to me, but that's a tricky one. That is a tricky one to see your child on paper. And I guess just know that that is one moment in time, but it doesn't measure some of those things that are so important. We tell Olivia she has the powers of love and healing because one day she went, "Where's my powers?" She had been watching Spider-Man. "Where's my powers?" And I said, "I don't know, Olivia, where did they go?" And I'm looking at her hands and I said, "Oh, I feel them. You've got the powers of love and healing." And so now when someone has a sore knee or something, she'll say, "Come here, my hands." So she's laying hands on people and not even, knowing the other version of that. But anyway, but also just in general, review what services the school offers so that you kind of know, okay, a language group is 2 times a week and I have to take them there. A preschool is more times, but they have transportation. Just kind of know those things so you can kind of be thinking if they only say, "Oh, we recommend speech only," you can be like, "Well, what about some of these other things?" And just kind of have in your mind a general idea of what you think might be a good fit for your child. During the meeting, refer to the notes that you've prepared because it just is good for you to think of what are my concerns for my child? What are some goals that I would like for her to achieve? They may have all the same things and you can just agree. But if they don't mention something, you can pop it up. Take notes during the meeting. I was always really curious, who are you and why do you deserve to be in here talking about my child? And so they would just rattle, and I'd write them down, and I'd say, "I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch your name." Because I thought, you know what? You all know who I am. You all know who she is. I need to know who you are because you're sharing your opinion and you're influencing what happens to my child. So that was very important to me. Plus, you need to know the decision makers. You want to know who is making that decision. Listen to the other team members and realize that they have done this a while. They do have experience. It is helpful. So listen to them. Some people, when they feel scared, nervous, uncertain, you're ready for a fight. But just be ready for it to be a constructive time for your child. And then if it starts veering a different way, take your breath, take your moment, and get it back on track. But I believe it's best to enter the room with a sense of teaming and constructive collaboration mindset. Talk, make suggestions, and ask questions. No harm in that. But when you go into the room, if you've got a daughter like mine, you've got an OT, a PT, a speech pathologist, a general ed teacher, a regular ed teacher, and a principal. One time I went to a meeting in high school. This is high school, so I've done this a lot. And we were in a new room, and there were at least 3 or 4 more people in there. And I'm like, "Who are you?" That was a special ed supervisor and another supervisor and another supervisor. And I thought, this is interesting. All these people here, don't quite know why. But Buddy, I wrote down every name, and I'm like, "Oh, I've seen your name on emails. Oh, I've seen this. Okay." So there were a lot of people in that room and me. My husband, it seemed like there was always something that popped up at work or he was out of the office or something. But my older daughter usually came with me, starting in middle school. She has always been very vested in what happens to Olivia. So Natalie was a little late, and I'm sitting there with my notebook, and I'm trying to appear all confident, and I'm like, "Oh, I hope Natalie gets here soon," because it's just it's a lot of people who all know each other, but anyway, but feel free to make suggestions and to talk. Someone will be a note taker. I learned that some people take notes better than others. And what one person thinks is important to put in the notes is not what I thought was important. And what I thought was important was not even in there. And there was one particular time that there was a disagreement about something, and I said, can you read the notes back to me? And they read it back, and lo and behold, there was no mention of this disagreement. And so we modified those notes. And so I think it's really important if there is a discussion or a disagreement, it's real important for them to read the notes back to you. We all knew in school if we were out sick who to get the notes from and who not to even bother getting the notes from. Same thing, you know? And they're trying to listen and type. It's hard to take notes at those meetings, like who said what and everything. But don't be afraid, you're signing it. And when you sign off on that IEP, you're signing off that you agree with everything in those notes. And so I wanted to make sure that what I said was in those notes. So after the meeting, continue to prepare yourself emotionally to share your child. Oh my gosh, you've been with them to all these therapist appointments and all these things, and now you got to hand them over to somebody else. And that's tough. But it can also be exciting. So some things that I did for me and for Olivia that shortens the learning curve so that they can learn all these things that you've learned and you know. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But just telling them about your child, putting it on paper so that they can refer to that, or a new teacher aide can refer to that, or a substitute teacher can refer to that. But be prepared for your little baby to go off to the next chapter, and you might be a puddle and they're just working the room, loving life. But it's a tricky thing. And prepare your child. There's social stories. Olivia's going to go to school just like her sister Natalie. Olivia, every birthday she has, they're 2 years apart. Every birthday, Olivia will say, I'm 6, almost 7, almost 8, just like my sister. And then the next birthday will come, I'm 18, almost 19, almost 20, just like my sister. It's like, you're never going to catch her. So my husband said, just tell Natalie to stop having birthdays. And I heard Olivia tell Natalie that. Natalie said, I can't do that. And Olivia's like, I'm never going to catch you, you know. But just like, so if you have an older sibling or a cousin or a neighbor, like, you get to go to so-and-so school, you might see them in the cafeteria. You might see them on the playground. Just help them relate to what's getting ready to happen. All kinds of books about Clifford going to school, or Coco Melon, whoever's around going to school. They know how to get our money. Drive by the schools. That's where you get to go and look at your playground, and this is going to be so exciting. Meet the teacher, go look at the classroom, get a new backpack. Take a picture of the teacher, take a picture of the school or whatever. So just kind of be preparing them, because it's a darn big change for them too, you know? It's a big change of scenery. So this is us now. So this is the maid of honor, Olivia. That little funky thing that you saw earlier grew up into this. And then Natalie, this is almost a year ago, got married on the same day 1 year later as Susie's little boy. And so I just want to show you too that those, here comes my eyes. Those early transition years, they're hard. But you will do it. You will get through it. You will succeed. Your children will thrive. You will be stretched. They will be stretched. But you have to stay involved and have to be a part of it. You don't get to sit in that therapy room, but find out, okay, how can I find out what's going on here? But I could tell you I could stand here forever and talk about that picture, but I'm going to advance. Oh, dear heavens above. Where am I even? Let's see here. Right there it is. But above all, remember, you can do it. I didn't put it on a slide. I had it highlighted on my paper. You can do it. And each IEP meeting will be a little bit different. You'll feel a little more confident. Or you might feel a little, that grief cycle might pop up right when you sit down. Just take a moment, take a breath, because it creeps in out of nowhere. Olivia is force to be reckoned with. She lives loud, she lives large. She's the most honest person I've ever met. When she was born, we did not know she was going to have Down syndrome. And if I told God, if you just tell me everything's going to be okay, I'll manage. But, that doesn't happen. And so we learned. Natalie was involved from the start. One time she wanted to buy a toy to increase Olivia's elbow strength, because that's what she kept hearing, increased strength, What elbow strength is there? But you get there. And sometimes there's bumps, and sometimes there's scrapes, and sometimes there's tears of joy or gratitude or fear or grief. But you get there. You get there. And if somebody had told me what life would be like with her, I would say, I don't deserve this. This is too good to be true. It's struggle. Health problems, surgeries, it's a struggle. But the joy that she brings, the things that she's taught me about myself, the grace that she shows people, the unconditional love that she shows people, it's like nothing I would have ever learned on my own. She's a stinker still, but anyway, so I want to turn to these lovely people. I have 10 minutes, is that right? Oh, this is perfect. I did not practice this before today. I had no idea how long this would go. And you start talking about your kids and time goes fast. But David and Ginny Holmes are just parents who have advocated and researched and done so much for their child. And as you were asking your questions and I was listening to her, I thought, I wonder what they're thinking as they listen to this. Because a lot of what she said rang true with me and reminded me of you all. But I've already told your names, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your two lovely daughters?
Yeah, so I'm David, this is my wife Ginny, and we have two daughters. Our oldest is 3.5, her name is Winnie, and that's what got us enrolled in the TEIS program. We have an 18-month-old daughter, 19-month, and Eve. And Jackie was our TEIS coordinator when we thank the Lord for her, by the way. We're here right now because of her and all of that amazing information, and here come my eyes.
I know. I love it. It's real.
We've done this a lot together, so this is how it goes. And we're okay with that. So we had Winnie on New Year's Eve, which is our 5th wedding anniversary, actually. Kind of crazy. Up at Children's, and we had no clue that there was anything going on in the womb, and we had her, and had some just immediate health problems, and ended up.
Maybe I should give the microphone. She said, I had her.
Yes, very true. And we ended up down at Children's in the NICU, and 10 days later, we got a diagnosis of a very rare syndrome called Prader-Willi syndrome. And I'm sure, like a lot of you in here, you get a diagnosis of this. I think it's 1 in 15 or 30,000 people have this, and you're like, come again? Did you
never even heard of?
Yeah, did you misspeak? Like, this can't be, it's just
Our
one
baby?
of those things. Yeah, it's just like hard to hear, hard to understand. Like you kind of black out for a number of days, weeks, however it kind of goes. And going through the same experience, I'm sure many of you did when you go through that. And luckily, Susie, I went to high school, middle school with Susie's daughter, Callie, and her husband, now Nadeem, and we were talking with them closely during this process we're going through, and they said, it's kind of crazy, but my mom's involved in this organization called Friends of Tennessee's Babies with Special Needs, and we're just like, this is a godsend. Like, how does that happen, And so we kind of went through that process, and then luckily we got hooked up with Jackie as our coordinator. And
Per Susie's request.
Yeah, so 3.5 years later, here we are going through this transition process that she talked about.
Yeah, and Winnie is 3.5, so they're kind of fresh with the transition stuff. How did you all prepare, and were you prepared technically and emotionally?
I definitely emphasizing a lot of the description. It felt like a big changing of the your process of letting in these strangers in a journey that you resented anyways. But then they became your people and your team, and part of our team is like, actually, you're gonna have a new team, and it's gonna be different, and all those things, and just the short of it is turned out amazing. And like all of us in our lives, there's a different phase and a different new part of your journey that you all have to go into together. But we did feel really prepared, mostly because of you. But
I knew who to bring, didn't I? No.
But a lot of the tactics you mentioned up here, I think with anything in life, when I think about my job or when I think about our relationship or family, and then especially this process, being really self-aware of what we thought as subject matter experts on our daughter, coinciding with this new set of people that we didn't know and necessarily trust yet, was it, having that thought organized and having those plans in place has been so critical to see if their plan matched what we thought our plan was going to be.
Exactly.
And with the people we trusted, as their recommendation, did that match this new team's recommendation? And making sure you never left a room, or same thing for doctor's appointments or anything else, of bringing your prepared questions in and speaking up when it is time to, or if something doesn't feel right, or if you didn't understand, definitely don't sign a piece of paper feeling like, well, I didn't really understand that, and I don't know, really, there's not a lot of clarity on what the next step is, and assuming that, I do think we've had so many angels, and we call them God wings in our life, like special people who have just like really stepped in. Like making sure that you are also advocating for yourself and your kid along the way.
Thank you, Ginny. And as you said, have your notes and be ready. I think my daughter took a little bit of editorial liberties with this that I will tweak before they go back out again. But one of the most important things to know is how important those goals are that you write, because the goals determine what services will happen. If you say, oh, I think my child needs OT, I think my child needs PT, if you don't have a goal written down, it ain't going to happen. And I have a family who I said that goals drive the services, goals drive the services. Well, their child has a different hearing level, and they really wanted their child to go to Tennessee School for the Deaf. They're zoned for Knox County, so Knox County is in charge of determining eligibility. And so she goes to the IEP meeting, they go through the draft IEP. She said, they asked me, does all of that sound okay? And she said, yes. And so then they said, Knox County can provide the services that your child needs. And she was like, wait a minute, can we go over those goals again? And she said, I knew you told me that, but I just kind of blanked at the time. So they looked at the goals again to have something in there about socialization with other people who use sign language, or where that's their first language, and things like that. So you don't have to write the goals, you don't have to come up with the criteria, you don't have to think of that, but you have to have an idea in your mind that I want to make sure that there is a goal that says something like, and if there's not, then you say, a goal that I would like to write for my child is XYZ. So goals are so important. Again, when you have a child who has so many people reporting their present levels and their present levels and their present levels and their present levels, your eyes kind of glaze over. You get to the goals and you're just like, I feel beaten and worn down. But that's the time to really perk up and see, what do these goals say? Because that's how they're going to decide if your child goes to preschool or not, how many hours of preschool your child gets, whether your child gets speech services or anything else or not. So these two are great preparers. And so you have in your mind, there needs to be something. I don't know what it's going to say or what it's going to look like, but there's going to be something about this subject on there. So my last question, and then we'll get to resources, and we're going to do all this in 4 minutes so that we can get to lunch on time. Was that first IEP meeting what you expected it to be? Was it better, worse? What'd you think of that first one? You've got one under your belt. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it went really well. I think the best piece of advice would be to listen to your TEIS coordinator, because they've done this a ton. She did not tell me to say that, by the way.
But I'll pay you later.
Yeah, but
We
she's
did
just
feel
got
like we
so
were going
much.
in with a cheat sheet going away to make sure that we were saying the right things and had researched the things that were important to us and for our daughter. And she's our first daughter too, so I would just say, like, we're not children experts, like,
Yeah, we didn't know.
making sure that we even knew on a general level what good expectation would be, and then, you know, figuring out what our new normal was and goals around that. In that preparation, like, was research beyond Prader-Willi syndrome, but just like in school, in a preschool setting, what might somebody be doing?
Right.
So we're in Knox County schools, and so when we met with all the people, we met at Fort Sanders downtown, and I actually took Winnie just myself at the time. I think she was working. So I was super impressed. I thought all the people were very competent. There was a huge room. There was a PT and OT, a speech, and you know, like you said, there's the vice principal, the principal, like there was like 8 people in the room. But I was super impressed with all of them. And I thought the communication was really good. Like, you hear stories and maybe it didn't go great in certain circumstances, but ours went really well. And then we had a follow-up, like, online. I don't know if that was because of COVID. We did a lot of FaceTime stuff. And I guess you can either get like 2 days of preschool or 3 days or 1. It kind of depends. I don't really know. I'm not an expert on this. But they had kind of thought that 2 days would be enough for Winnie, because she did pretty well on her assessment. But we had talked about previously that we want her to get as much service as possible. So we advocated and said, well, actually, we'd like to do 3. Like, 2 is great, but I think she can handle 3 days. And they just immediately like, okay, 3. And so we got 3. And so I think if you know,
She could go to 5, like.
yeah, kind of what you want, like, beforehand, then you can kind of like steer them in the right direction.
I joined the assessment readouts, and that's something that I know I felt guarded on going into. Like, how is this new person going to have any idea what's going on with my kid who has been with these other, you know, these are our frontline people. You're not going to know. And I was actually very surprised, and that was something that gained my trust. I'm sure that's not every single person's experience, but when I got that stuff that is sometimes hard to read on paper back, I felt like they actually nailed it, like, in each regard, and that gave me some level of comfortability on that their assessment actually was asking the right questions and was fitting us to the applicable piece, even though that's not what my heart wanted to believe at first going into it. So that, and if anything was, you know, if I had a question about it, or maybe wasn't exactly, or what does this mean, we made sure to ask those questions, so we did feel comfortable with, like, you know, the actions being based off the assessment, and then still, like, for example, on the recommendation on the number of days, that we still pushed on what we felt like we could collaborate on and compromise on as a solution for our team. I think one of the IEP was, you know, that process was fine. I think the biggest difference, though, is, like, entering the school system is, you know, it's a totally different, like, we're used to one of us at least going to that therapy session and being in it with her every single day or week, and we have a variety of different therapies. And now you're trusting them to, you know, I think it's very interesting, the name, it's like individual, not the family. So we're working on those things together, but, you know, that was a big adjustment for me. I'm like, what do you mean you'll see her sometime this week? When did you see her, and what specifically did you work on? And, you know, and so we did, when we were feeling that, they delivered all their notes, and it was very specific, but it was just a little bit different. And then I had to remind myself of, like, maybe a year ago, we were at a birthday party, and there was like this little miniature trampoline, and Winnie wasn't walking yet, and there was a girl who was like 6 on that trampoline, and so I put Winnie on it because she kind of seemed like she wanted to get on it, and she's kind of like pulling up to this point, and the 6-year-old looked at me and she said, "Are you going to stand there the whole time?" And I was like, "You're right. I know. Let you guys."
You play together.
I'll be back here. So I just think some of that's in the picture here. I'm just like letting them spread their wings on some
good,
and feeling good about the preparation that you did to make them successful. And it's been awesome. Like, she entered the school system, you know, not being able to count to 10, she can count to 20 by May. She can do her whole ABCs. She knows what an octagon is. Like, crazy things like that. So, yeah, all her colors. So it was such a great, like, academic experience, social experience, and we have gained that trust with, like, the new group, even though it's just different.
And that's the thing, you know, trust takes time, and that's hard. You know, we want to know. I wanted to know the day she was born, is everything going to be okay? Only time will tell. And trust takes time, and I think going in with the premise that of positive until proven wrong or until proven question. If they hadn't responded, you'd have responded again, you'd have followed up. But a lot of things with email, send them an email. Talking to them in the car line, talking to them at pickup does not document anything. So put it in an email, you got a timestamp, a date stamp, and a timeline. So that's something that I think editorially was taken out, but very important to do. So there are, thank you all. Thank you for sharing your heart and your overflowing tears, your overflowing eyes. Yeah, that's another influence I had on you, was to just cry. Because before this, you never would have felt comfortable with that.
Talking about kids there, I think like Jackie's like, we have till 8:30 to 9 today, and it'd be like 9:45, and we're still talking to Jackie. We're like, we should probably let you go. We have to see, Natalie's wedding.
Yeah, we digressed a little, but we related a lot. Yeah. So very quickly, I want to share just some written resources for you all. And let's see here. So Steps to Success is a brochure put out by DIDD, TEIS. That's on their website. Hopefully your service coordinator will get you there, but it's also a link in your IFSP that you can go to. Knowing your rights and tips on navigating IEP meetings. Someone from STEP is graciously here with us, and she has a table out there with some handouts, and she'll also be doing a discussion, a breakout session after lunch. But that is a tremendous resource. In that is this one-page eligibility guide that is very handy-dandy. And then there's a toolkit for parents that is from Vanderbilt. And it's kind of long. It's 8 pages, and that's a little bit long. But on page 5 is this great checklist of things, and it's just bulleted, and it's nice. So it has things in about the transition, IEP, etc. But there's this nice little succinct checklist that I really like. And then I kind of stumbled on this one, this family engagement website. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with that, but it's just kind of a general resource, and it has some talks and some sessions and different things. Are you familiar with it, Cody? Yeah, okay. And it's with the ARC of Tennessee and the Department of Ed. This is a collaboration of theirs. And then there is something called an All About Me book that your service coordinator or early interventionist might put you together with, but this is that shortening the learning curve. And you don't have to fill it out, you don't have to do it, but you can certainly take ideas from it, of just telling them about your child, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what triggers them, what motivates them, just different things to help them get a glimpse into what you know about your child. And then I put in something that I gave teachers every year, Tips for Olivia. And I kept it to 1 page. One time Natalie wanted to do it, and it was 3 pages long. And I said, Nat, they are not going to read this. So we honed it down a little bit, but she is an overachiever. I appreciated all the thought and effort, but I'm like, we got to get this to 1 page. But you'll see it. At the very top, Olivia has 2 food allergies, and I thought, even if it's the same teacher, I want to remind her, allergic to strawberries and oranges, and then I put, you'll see, has an older sister at UTK. And the one I'm sharing is from when Olivia was in high school. So of course it will be very different for your children. But I put like key things, and a key thing of she understands much more than she can say. And then tips of what helps her make that transition. When she's in a sit-down strike, what gets her out of that? And ways to encourage her. So those things will be in the attachment that you can just see how to take maybe something from the tips from Olivia, something from All About Me. And we talked about this when Winnie was starting daycare. So it's a great thing for daycare.
Like being of trust, like you suggested this, and I never thought of it. She had low muscle tone, so it was very difficult to feed her. So we got cats that in YouTube, feeding with like 17 different tactics and techniques that I only trusted like the two of us to do. And Jackie was like, well, why don't you put together a About Me page and bring that in? And so I decorated it with stickers and all the stuff. I'm going back to work. She's 4 months old. And I went back to just like surprise attack / check in on how daycare was going. And the teacher, who is just like one of the closest teachers we've had, was sitting there with a piece of paper exactly following like how we had asked her to be, and it just like made me feel so comforted that she was taking it really seriously and that we had prepared the information. And now later on we have different food requirements and we bring that into the classroom. So I mean, and we should do something. This is a good reminder.
Yeah.
It was a huge piece in so many ways.
It sets everybody up for success. It helps the teacher, it helps the child, it helps the parent. It sets everybody up for success. So, oh my Lanta, we're 7 minutes older. We are 7 minutes older and over.
Hold on, I'd like to just say something. So I'm Stephanie, I'm with Kate Beckett, which is the next step after TIS. A lot of what I was picking up, what you guys were throwing out, was a constant in your life, and we can be that constant. We can help you bridge those gaps in transition years. We can be that constant for your kids in your family from 0 to 18 years old. And we can help you to advocate and help you be part of your village. So come see myself or Katie, and we would love to tell you more about Katie Beckett.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for your attention. You can do it.